Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about familiars in Pathfinder 2e. And boy, do I have some opinions about familiars in this game. If you're looking to have a fun, magical pet, then familiars are probably your best bet in the entire system, but it's important to know what you're getting into before you go ahead and get one. Let's jump into it. Alright, so let's cover the basics for familiars. A familiar is a tiny animal that has some amount of magical power that you can tweak every single day. Every familiar has a various amount of familiar abilities every day, which range from basic stuff like having a climb speed or dark vision, but you can also get some really fun stuff like speech or touch telepathy. Every day, you can change these abilities to pick what you want from the full list. The only limitation is that if you have a bird as a familiar, then it always needs to spend an ability every day to get a fly speed, since, it's a bird. Basically, if an animal would normally have an ability that is granted by a familiar ability, you have to spend a familiar ability to get it. So, no freebies by saying, my familiar is a bird, therefore I can fly for free. In combat, familiars don't actually get their own turn. Instead, they're minions, meaning that you have to spend an action to command them, which then gives them 2 actions. This can provide a good amount of versatility in combat, but familiars don't have good defenses, and their hit points are made out of wet tissue paper. While you can send them out into a firefight, it's pretty risky. Now, I need to clarify something here. I absolutely love familiars in 2e, but I still have problems with them. Familiars being as flexible as they are allows for a bunch of really funky stuff, like flying cats or a literal pet rock that talks to you whenever you touch it. There is a ton of fun stuff here, but it isn't all sunshine and rainbows when compared to other familiar systems, especially Pathfinder 1st editions. My main issue is really simple. I'd like for having a cat familiar to actually be different from having a crow familiar. As it is, the only difference is that a crow would require you to take the flyer familiar ability every day. While I understand that giving specific creature types their own unique features would guarantee that there would be optimal and suboptimal familiar choices, as it is, familiars feel very flat mechanically. Another issue that I have is that while I love how much versatility that there are with familiars, in my experience, most players don't actually change their abilities each day to capitalize on that flexibility. They just find a set of abilities that they like their familiar having, and then don't change them up every day. There can be a lot of stuff to keep track of in 2e, and juggling different familiar abilities seems to be lower on the priority list for at least the people that I've played with. My final issue with familiars is actually mechanical. Most familiars will only have 2 different abilities, and then you have to spend feats to get more. While this isn't by necessity bad, I wish that every character's familiar scaled at least a little bit with how many abilities they got as you leveled up, even if it is very, very slow. It kind of sucks if you get a familiar from an ancestry feat at level 1, and it still only has 2 abilities at level 20. Now imagine if you got, an additional ability at level 10 and then another one at level 20. It wouldn't be game-breaking in the slightest, at least I think. Now, something like this change probably doesn't exist, because both wizards and witches can get familiars that get far more abilities than normal. But I'm not exactly happy with how those mechanics or classes work either. Yeah, it's cool that witches can get a familiar with a crazy amount of abilities, but it's a bit lame as a core class mechanic, since, like I said earlier, familiars aren't actually super powerful, and people don't tend to utilize their flexibility that much. Personally, I feel like to make a witch familiar feel special, they need access to unique familiar abilities that are restricted to each individual patron, and that are far, far stronger than normal familiar abilities. But that is a bit outside of the scope of this video, isn't it? I guess that what it comes down to is that familiars in 2e don't have much substance to them. But that's by design. They're meant to add a little bit of spice to a character concept, rather than be a core part of that character. In this, they do their job really well. However, I still prefer a system like Pathfinder 1e, where in addition to providing a bit of spice, familiars actually brought a bit of power to the table. Thanks for watching. Familiars are simultaneously a ton of fun and a bit of the pain in the ass, and they are wonderful. They're even better if your GM really likes to have a talking piece in the party, since if you add a talking cat to the game, the GM can actually contribute to the conversation, and it's way better than them trying to incorporate like a GM NPC or something. What have your experiences with familiars been? I've only played with a few, honestly. Let me know in a comment down below. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.